And so if you want to start really getting serious about scaling, you have to understand what is required when you're shifting from being an operator owner to a true CEO. A true CEO, if you look at CEOs of these very large companies, they aren't getting involved in stuff that's happening on the ground level. They're not doing it. It's not, they understand and they know it is not the best use of their time.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
And you've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Now you're going into companies and you start as organizing, but now you're creating process for companies. And I think it's been my experience in business that when you come into a business and you're going to start implementing a new process or new procedure, there always, especially in small companies, there always seems to be one person, guy or woman, doesn't really matter, that this is never going to work and what I do is magic and nobody can do it the way that I do it. And when you implement process in a company, I think the number one is you have to have buy-in from every employee. You've got to get everybody on board, or you have these rogue things really getting lost. What do you say to the small company that has the Jimmy or the Stacy that is this pivotal person for their company that isn't adopting the new culture of this new process, but he's part of the family, right? He's gotten them out of trouble. He's gotten, he's been there in the hard times. How do you overcome that for a company, specifically for a small business? Big company's just going to fire them, find a replacement. But in the small business, that's part of why we love what we're doing so much, is the relationships that we build with our employees and our staff, and that we work together and we build this really solid culture. And you're going to come in and disrupt that, right? So how do you, what do you tell that business owner or that employee? How do you get them on board?
That is such an important question, and I'm glad you asked that. Buy-in, the way you get buy-in is to get people involved from the very beginning. And what I mean by that is, before you just dive headfirst into documenting processes, we'll say processes just to start off this example. There are things that I recommend you do in order to determine what processes have to be documented in the first place. There are a series of exercises, and I always recommend that people get everybody involved in those exercises, because if you can get them in early on, you get their buy-in. They now have a vested interest. They now don't feel threatened. A lot of times people do that because they feel threatened. Oh, you're going to document everything I do so that you can find somebody else who can do it cheaper, who's younger than me, the list goes on and on and on. A lot of times people just hoard information. They just don't want to share it. And there is you bring up a very good point. There is a very delicate balance of how do you get people involved? How do you assure them that their jobs won't be compromised? But you can't always make that guarantee. But what you can do is tell them, our company is growing. And if you want to be a part of this, we need your full and active participation. It also ties to culture. Are you building a culture of transparency? If you have a culture of everything's a secret, everything is a, special ops type situation, then you're really going to struggle. But if you truly do have a culture of this is transparent, we have a team, there's a team approach to everything that you do, and not the silos that plague the much larger organizations, you absolutely can get the buy-in, but you have to do it from the very beginning. There's another book that I like. Some people look at me a little funny whenever I talk about this book, but it's called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And power,
I'm not all the way through it. But
okay, well, one of the laws, I think it's law number 45, I believe, but it talks about preaching the need for change, but never reform too much at one time. In other words, you have to almost use a drip just a little bit to slowly start to get people to change their minds and their ideas and their perceptions of the direction that you're trying to go in, especially if you're trying to do an about face. So if you have not had processes and you've been in business for 10 years and now all of a sudden you're telling everyone they're going to have processes, you will encounter resistance. So how do you start to steer the ship in the direction that you're trying to take your company? Well, one of the first things, Ken, is to introduce something as simple as, this is one of my exercises, by the way, stick figures and index cards. And with this particular exercise, we literally all get together in a room. We brainstorm on all of the activities that are being performed in the company. We have a very healthy discussion about who ideally should perform each activity. And then once we understand all of those activities, we know how to organize those activities into departments. Then we figure out, how do we group some of these activities together to actually identify the processes that have to be documented? I guarantee you, I have not, and there's always exceptions to any hard, fast rule, I understand. But of all the times that I've gone through these exercises with clients, I have not yet once encountered resistance by the time we get to the point of documentation. But if you just jump headfirst in, yeah, you will. The resistance is real, and they will buck against the system. They don't want to do it. Even if you threaten that they may lose their jobs or they may be reprimanded in some form or fashion, it still doesn't matter. If they don't want to give up the information, they're just not going to do it.
And it's
so those
really
are just some of the things. It's very, very challenging and costly. Think about it. When information resides in people's heads, the minute that person leaves, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that person leaves because that person has been fired or that person has been laid off or has decided to quit. The person could pass away. The person could be out on vacation. The person could be out sick from COVID. The person could have a sick kid. There are a number of reasons why, if that person, for whatever reason, isn't around for a number of days, possibly even a week or two, if things start to break down, that means you have a situation that is people dependent and not process dependent.
Right. Which is scary. It's detrimental to the company.
Very scary. And this is why we can learn so much from manufacturing companies, because they know they have to have a process. They literally cannot afford to not have documentation about, this is how we produce this pen. And every pen that we produce absolutely must meet these specifications. There is no room for error. There is no room for defects. You have to get it right. But somehow when it comes to service-based businesses, we don't have the same level of, I don't want to use the word seriousness, but we don't have that. Right.
The rigidness of manufacturing.
Right. And we don't want our processes to be so incredibly rigid that, of course, people feel like they're being caged in. But we do have to establish what the standards and the guidelines look like. This is what a well-produced, let's say if you are producing a report for your client or an insurance, you're providing an insurance service. This is what a 5-star insurance service looks like, service delivery looks like for our clients. The client is happy with all of these, go down a list of things that you check off. You have to define what success looks like. Otherwise, people will run amok, and you have to have some level of documentation so that people understand how to deliver to those expectations.
On the culture side, I've got 3 tips that I need to use on culture when I'm creating a new process. And the first one is just a requirement to be on my team is you have to read the book, Who Moved My Cheese? And
that's
just
a good
simply,
one.
And the only reason is so that we can have conversations about these 4 characters and have conversations about change in a kind of a fun way that isn't so, scary to talk about. You're talking about mice, right? And running around a field. So And I think it's just a fun way to be able to communicate with each other when we're talking about change. The second is I really make sure that that they understand that standards aren't hard and fast rules. That they're going to be, we try to write standards to be 99% of the time, but really, 80-20 rule falls into effect a lot. So explaining that, hey, this is the standard. This is going to work 99% of the time or 80% of the time, whatever. There's these nuances that happen in the world, and explaining that standards are not granite. And then the third thing that I always make sure that I do, and this was huge for me and every company that I've been in, is on our standards, creating a process that has that an employee can open a feedback loop and close a feedback loop on what that standard process is, so that they know the nuances and the deviations in those standards. And those are the three things that I do on a regular basis to make sure that the culture's right around. Because if you don't let them tell you when the process is wrong, and they don't not in control of that, then it creates animosity and
absolutely
and pushback, and then they just abandon. Well, why would I put in a trouble ticket? It doesn't work anyway.
Right.
Is the mindset they get into, which is horrible because you're not documenting your process, you're not documenting your problems. So, and getting that mentality into a small business is really hard, right? Because you're talking to the business owner. I can do it any way I want. What are you talking? I gotta write that down every time I do it. No, I'm not going to do that.
But you said something really critical earlier, Ken, and that is when you, I think it may have been something we discussed before we actually started recording. Those business owners that are listening to this right now, who they have growth, but at the same time, they understand they really do have the ability to take the business to another level. But unless you do some of the things, or unless they do some of the things that you and I are talking about right now, they're not going to get there. You and I have had the benefit of being in very large organizations. We see what it takes. Now, their processes may still be loosely defined in a lot of these larger companies, but rest assured, there are processes. There is that business infrastructure that we're talking about. And so if you want to start really getting serious about scaling, you have to understand what is required when you're shifting from being an operator owner to a true CEO. A true CEO, if you look at CEOs of these very large companies, they aren't getting involved in stuff that's happening on the ground level. They're not doing it. It's not. They understand and they know it is not the best use of their time. So if we as owner operators, those of us who may still be functioning as, you're doing the technical work of the business, but you're also still trying to grow it at the same time, you can't serve two masters, right? As the old expression goes, you have to pick a side. And if you know that you still love, the technical aspect of whatever it is you're doing, then find someone else who has that big picture, visionary, strategic thinking skill, who can come in and take over as the true CEO of your company. And that requires a lot of maturity to be able to say, you know what? I got it to this point. I got it to point A, but I can't get it to point D. That's going to require a completely different skill set. And a lot of people, if we look at the story of the founders of many of the well-known brands that we know today, it's very rare that the person who actually founded the company is the same person who ends up being the very first quote unquote CEO once that company goes public. It's very rare. Some people have that skill set, like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, but a lot don't.
Yeah, correct. And running a small business forever is totally commendable. But I can promise you, even if you're not looking to scale and exit your company, adopting process and procedure will make your life just better. It will make it easier. It will take some of those stresses away. It will make hiring easier. It'll do all of those things. So, Alicia, if somebody's out there and they're watching this show and they're scratching their head and like, man, I'm kind of ready, but I'm not. What are some of the qualifications that make a business owner a really good, like a great fit to work with your team? Like where would they be?
Where they usually are, unfortunately, Ken, but it's just the reality of the situation, is where they have more growth than they can handle. Yeah, the demand is here, but the supply is here. The supply is much lower. So that's when they realize, oh crap, we've invested so much money on the sales and marketing side of the business that we've completely lost sight of what's going on operationally.
Right.
So I had a client years ago, and I laugh every time I think about this, but it sums this up so well. She said, sales is out there selling the dream while us folks here in operations deal with the nightmare. In other words, the sales and marketing folks are out there making the promise, but operations has to make sure that you can actually deliver, that you deliver on that promise. Because if you don't, then you have angry customers. And angry customers are not quiet. They will go on social media. They will give you bad reviews on Yelp. So that's why I say, unfortunately, that's what it takes usually when most smaller business owners realize, like, oh my goodness, we have to do something. But here's the other part to the challenge, Ken, is that you're feeling the pain. You're feeling the chaos of that fast, unmanageable growth. Well, where on earth do you go to find help? Where do you go for assistance? And that's why I'm on a mission to make this information accessible. That's why I love when you said making enterprise solutions easily accessible and available to smaller businesses, because what happens usually, if the business owner has enough foresight to actually know how to search for this type of solution online, for example,
Right.
they usually run into one of two issues. One, they find that a great majority of the information is reserved for manufacturing companies, or two, that it's reserved for the big guys, the Coca-Colas and the Facebooks of the world. How can they relate? How can they find someone that can actually give information that's tailored specifically to those smaller companies?
Right. And today, the tools to create process like this are available, and they're super cheap, right? I create a lot of process based, like the fundamental pieces of Google Sheet, right? With drop downs on workflow management. And, that's absolutely free, right? It takes some time you have to understand the process and all the things involved, but the software that's available today, if you understand some of the process behind how you create these workflows and task management tools, things like that, are affordable. And then sometimes, we use Asana, which is a free project management tool, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So my team, we use Notion. We tried Asana. Asana does integrate with Notion, but the reason we ultimately went with Notion is because we're able to manage the projects, but we also can use it as a wiki, as a document repository.
Okay.
Notion is very visual. Asana does not have those kinds of that visualization feature that Notion has. Notion is far more affordable than Asana. We found Asana to be incredibly expensive for what we were trying to accomplish. But with Notion, just to give you an idea of the cost, and as of right now, it's $4 per user annually. US dollars. You cannot beat that. Check it out. Notion.so. We have literally everything. And I think this is also worth pointing out, Ken. This doesn't happen overnight. If I were to share my screen with you and show you all of the amazing things that we've built in Notion, this has been us actively putting in content, again, a drip. Slowly but surely, week by week, we're figuring out how to get more information out of our heads and onto paper. Another thing that we use is Loom to record quick videos. Well, how do I do this in MailChimp? How do I do this in Asana? How do I create a Kanban board in Monday.com? Well, someone on our team has put together a quick 5-minute video. They've recorded it using Loom, and we just upload that to Notion, and now it's searchable and accessible to anybody on our team. So that's the tool that I would recommend to many who might be listening and watching this right now. Go and check it out. Sign up for a free account. Play around with it. I know ClickUp is another really popular one that more and more companies are starting to use right now. But to your point, There's so many tools right now that make it easy for us to document the process. And if I may, Ken, if I could just speak a little bit about process documentation.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be that standard where step 1, you do this, and step 2, and you might be thinking, oh, dear God, I'd rather watch grass grow. I don't want to sit down and have to document step by step what I'm doing. Try this. To your point, Google has all kinds of free services. We all know this. So try using Google Voice and just record yourself. Just start dictating how you do a certain thing. Let the software type it out for you. Yeah, you'll go in and you'll do some cleanup, but in 30 minutes, you could have a process actually typed out.
Yes.
So rather than you having to get on your keyboard and peck away, and I'm also a huge fan of using Loom to do screen recordings.
Yes.
If there is something that you're trying to explain to someone, especially when it comes to using a particular type of software, just start recording yourself on Zoom. You can even put those videos up on a private YouTube channel. That way, again, it's accessible to everyone. This is not rocket science, guys. Don't think of this as the old school thick binder that was an operations manual that used to just sit on the shelf and it would collect dust that nobody ever looked at. These processes can be very dynamic, easily accessible, stored in the cloud, as you pointed out, Ken, for an extremely affordable rate.
Right. I think it's just some of these people need to understand that, I can just take a video from my phone and then put that up. You know, we use for our SOPs, we use WordPress, and we've created a WordPress process for creating SOPs and doing all that stuff. So it works really, really well. It's searchable. Everybody has access to it. I can put videos in there and all kinds of fun stuff. So it works phenomenally well. But there's other tools out there. There's thousands and thousands of tools out there. My recommendation is find something you like working with and stick to it.
Yes.
The knee-jerk changing back offices or changing project management tools is tedious and it costs you a ton of money.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I don't even know how to say it, Nat. I'm not a huge fan of that project management style. I'm more of a task manager. Bam, bam, bam. Knock it out. But I like milestones better than goals. So But it's for everybody to figure out on their own. But I see so many businesses. Like, well, how do you do that? Oh, well, Jimmy does that. Well, what if Jimmy's sick? Right? I deal with the butcher, and he's like, I'm the only one that can butcher this meat, and because he's a halal butcher. I think I'm saying that properly, right? And it has to be done halal. It has to be done a very specific way. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. Like, why don't you make a video on how to do that? He's like,
train people.
I was taught by my dad. He was taught by his dad, and it's just really
that specialized knowledge. That's when it really becomes critical. Again, we talked about what happens when other people are out, but what happens if you're out? You have literally, your business has become a ball and chain to you. You cannot escape it.
Right.
And you're going to want to take a vacation. You're going to want to take some time off. I had a day yesterday, Ken, where I was just like, I just can't do this today. I just can't do it today. I'm tired. My body aches. I can't do it today. But guess what? Nothing fell apart because of that. I was allowed, as the founder and CEO of the company, I was allowed to just have a Netflix and chill day.
Right.
And not feel guilty about it. That's the other key thing, I think.
Absolutely. Alicia, if somebody's out there watching and they want to do business with you, how would they get in contact with you? And do you have any offers for the audience today?
Absolutely. The best way to contact me personally is through LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I have a LinkedIn newsletter called The Smooth Operator, where I give all of these amazing free tips on a weekly basis. So you can find me there at Alicia Butler Pierre. And my special offer, we have just released volume 1 of a course on building business infrastructure. So if you're curious about some of the things that Ken and I have talked about today and you want to learn a little bit more, but you don't have the budget maybe to bring us in as consultants, go to smoothoperator.courses, smoothoperator.courses, and we will walk through it together. There's video demonstrations. There's a ton of resources that you can download, as well as templates that you'll be able to use to start creating some of the things that Ken and I have talked about during this interview.
Wonderful. And we'll throw all those links at the bottom. This is really important stuff, folks. If you are struggling in your business at any stage along the way, and solo entrepreneurs seem to get stuck at the 1 to 250,000, 5 to 10 employees, you kind of get stuck at that $1 to $3 million stage in your business. And it's been my experience, every time I get to one of those kind of hurdles, adding process is what gets you through that to the next step, right? Or gets you to that next level. Because you can't do stuff like hire employees quickly unless you have a process for that. And if you're a service provider, you have to have those processes because you have to have background checks and all kinds of other stuff. But, I could talk about all the reasons why you need these processes in your business and every part of your business too. Do you find, I'm going to close up, but I have another question for you.
Okay.
Do you find that some business owners, and I think I don't know why this happens, and I'm guilty of it too. They build a whole bunch of process around one part of their business that they like the part that they like, but they kind of leave this other part over here that just has no process at all. Like this part of their business is all wild, wild west. And this part of their business, like sales and infrastructure, I guess it happens more in HR because HR people are more rigid. Like the HR department is kind of really process oriented, but the sales isn't.
I think you answered the question, believe it or not, when you said, they're focusing on the things that they really like. So of course you're going to document. Think about it, anyone who's listening to this right now, ask yourself, be honest with yourself. Do you really love every single aspect of your business? I can tell you right now, I don't like accounting. It makes me want to break out in hives. I just hate the thought of bookkeeping. I don't like it. That's why I have someone else who does that for me. But I know that those processes have to be documented. So what I do, because I don't like doing it, I ask that person, Denise, can you start documenting what you do? And then once you document something, I'll then take a look at it. And if I can follow what you've written, or if I can follow what you've recorded and roughly produce the same result, we're good. We're good. Yes. So teach other people how to do the documentation. You don't have to do this yourself, especially if you know you don't enjoy it. Some people just don't like getting into the details, and I get it. Find people who do like getting into the details and who can just document the things that they're already doing. So that way you have a well-rounded approach.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Alicia. I had so much fun talking about business process. It is one of the things that I like to nerd out about. So thank you for your time today, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Oh, thank you so much, Ken.
Awesome. Thank you. That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to join my text line community, the number is 314-370-2871. All you have to do to join that text line is send me any question about business or technology. I'll do all the research, and I'll give you an absolutely free, totally unbiased answer. Get to work.